Oh, I thought you.
Right.
Hello, everyone. This is the chat about everything. This is
Hello, Gormless.
hello, Cormless. Hey, that's not a nice thing to say about our viewers and our subscribers. Have we got any? If you are one, make sure you sign and subscribe so that you can get
Stop
more
all
of
that
these
bullshit and get on
conversations.
with it, Tim.
We are just three blokes, three different opinions,
What
one
about
nihilist, one spiritual, one Christian, shooting the breeze about anything and everything for entertainment and information purposes only, no intention meant. So, today we are talking about hustle culture. And,
Ooh.
and
What? I thought we were talking about anxiety.
Yeah, we were going to, and that was my choice for this week. But at the last minute, but I haven't really had a chance to tell you, John. We are going to discuss, is hustle culture toxic?
Hustle.
Hustle coach culture. Yeah, you know the stuff. You know everybody,
What side hustle?
particularly blokes, perhaps in the manosphere, saying, "Make money, get a big car, live your dreams, let's go." Hustle culture in the city might look like on the trading floor of all the finance companies and stocks and shares. Buy, 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 sell, sell, sell. Let's go. Let's do it. Hustle culture is trying to make as much money as you can in the financial economy so that you can be as rich and powerful and until you get old and die. So yeah, shitting on your colleagues to rise up through the office ranks to get higher positions of power. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. The daily 9 till 5, or some hustle culture proponents would probably put it more like get up at 5 and work until, go to bed at whatever, have
Yeah.
a few hours kip, and then get up, eat, sleep, repeat. So that's the hustle culture I'm talking about. So the question today is, do we think it's toxic? And obviously, the way that I've just laid that out, it would be no secret to kind of like assume that I think it is. And I was talking to a manager within an organization yesterday who has risen up the ranks, and he's a great guy. Love him to bits. Seems really knowledgeable, really passionate about what he does. He's super on it. But he was saying,
Is there another word you can use for toxic?
oh, okay. Well, we'll break that down in a second. So this guy was saying that, he was working, and then he had a bit of a breakdown health wise and mentally. And as you know, guys, I've done a bit of work in mental health, and I did some work in an organization trying to address burnout. But this guy was saying, like, I wish I'd found space for me. It's really important to find space for yourself. And I love, like this morning, I went out with the dog, got out in nature, um, picked a few things from the hedgerow, actually, wild garlic, all sorts of things. And I'm going to make a soup from it. But what I'm saying is, some people would say, well, what are you doing? Why aren't you on your grind? Get on the computer, get making some money. I have been a six-figure coach, and I have been, at that sort of level in boardrooms across blue chip companies. But I don't know whether that's where it's at for most of us. I think actually looking after yourself, having a relationship with yourself spiritually, physically, mentally is much more important than being on your grind 9 till 5 every day or trying to burn yourself out even longer.
So what's the
So
difference?
let's talk about toxic then. Toxic is when it's not very good. Toxic is when it affects other people, perhaps, through role modeling. And I know one guy I used to coach.
Yeah, okay, all right. What's
I'll
another
stop talking for a bit. Come on, guys.
two questions.
Yeah.
What is the question?
Yeah. So the question is hustle culture toxic?
Okay, and the second question is give me another word for toxic.
Yeah. Toxic.
One word.
In, uh, uh, detrimental,
Okay.
infectious.
No, one word, Tim.
Well, there's many words for it.
Let's hear your. Let's go for it, Hen.
Look, you've got Google in front of you. Put toxic in
It's not. It's not what
poisonous,
Google
poisonous,
says. It's what you
poisonous.
interpret. Your interpretations. It's important.
Okay, that's cool.
So
Well, I
off the top of your head, it was detrimental. So that's enough. That's enough.
no, 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 I've changed my mind. In this moment right now, I hear what Henry's saying, and I've gone, yeah, poisonous. That's really good. Poisonous.
Okay. Go
Okay.
on,
Yeah,
Hen.
I did Google that. It came up unsafe, injurious, poisonous, nauseous, dangerous. Anyway. Yeah, so I a quote from Jordan Peterson has come up and it's um he said that people tend to see the world through their goals. And I think that's really true because I would say I was sort of involved in the whole hustle culture, hustle bro. I think when I was like 18, 19, I was sort of there. And I think it stems from like the belief of what success is. And I think as an 18, 19 year old, I thought it was all about, you know, building wealth. Yeah, money, essentially. Like that's how most people tend to measure their success, right? And I think if you're with that belief, like hustle culture is sort of where you're going to end up. Um, and yeah, I think the goal for me at the time was to make money and build businesses, and that seemed like the antidote. That seemed what life as a young man was about. But
Is it
obviously, I don't believe that anymore. Sorry,
is it toxic?
it definitely can be. This idea of like work until your eyes bleed, nothing else matters. You gotta get rich, otherwise you're a brokey loser. And to a degree, if that's the world you're in, you could see the world like that. I can understand why people go down that route, but now I believe, the point of life is to get into heaven, not to build material things that you can't take with you. It feels pointless. And the Bible says the pursuit of money is like chasing the wind. So yeah, I would say it is toxic for sure because it gives the wrong idea about what's important and what you should be. Well, chasing at all feels wrong anyway, but it definitely is like putting the wrong
Did it say that? Is
spin
it?
on.
Does it say
Yeah,
that the pursuit of money is chasing the wind? That's what it
yeah,
says in the Bible.
yeah. It does say that.
Yeah, Jesus went into the marketplace and flipped tables, didn't he? Because he was quite annoyed at people kind of making money out of the just having the pursuit of making money with no spiritual kind of gain and
Yeah,
taking
wasn't
advantage of animals and stuff like that.
but wasn't that because they were doing it in the temple?
Yeah, partly. Or was that the bit of the story that we were told? Who knows what was in his head when he went in there to flip the tables? But yeah,
I watched The Passion of Christ recently, as you know, and in that fictional movie talks of his wife being the whore, which as both you and Henry say, it wasn't. But it also going into the palace, and he was upset at the fact that people were going in there making profits in a place of worship, and he was like, no, that's not what it's all about, and he lost the plot, didn't he, sort of thing.
Mm.
But
and
yeah,
and
it's
it's
interesting.
still happening now, isn't it? People profiting from a religion.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Do you know when people say, "Oh, life will never be like that"? Imagine like you set an ideal, like something that seems way off where we are right now. So an ideal like there'll never be war, or we'll always help each other and put each other before profit. Things like this, things that feel so far away from today's world that it's almost like some people might say that'll never happen.
Yeah.
Like you should always aim for that ideal, right? And I've
But
realized there is a world where these kind of things are possible. There is a world where we're not focused on profit. We are focused on each other. All of this is possible. We can imagine it, so it can be in the real world. And some of us desire it, right?
I think
It's
there's a problem though, is with consumerism. It releases endorphins and serotonin. And that's why you get shopaholics and things like that, and that's why a lot of wealthy people, they're not happy with last year's Lamborghini. They want this year's Lamborghini, and things like that, because once they're in it, they get a buzz out of it. And so, although I think I hear what you're saying, Tim, is that, and goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that we're indoctrinated into this sort of like Western lifestyle of of school, education, work, buy a house, buy a car, and have all these material things and then show off that, and it's a way of uh, sort of what you've achieved in life. But really, what you've achieved in life, you've been able to work your balls off hard enough, or smartly, rightly or wrongly. You could have done it in a corrupt way, but you buy all these material things, and it's a way of showing other people that you've done well for yourself. But invariably, it's internally, it's not really. It's ephemeral. It only lasts for a minute, if you're hey, Bezos and Elon Musk are always like comparing each other who's the richest person in the world. I mean, fucking hell. I think to give you an example, I think in terms of minutes, to be a millionaire is if it's 31 minutes. To be a billionaire, it's 31 years. So it's just fucking,
Yeah,
it's obnoxious to
yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
if you're a billionaire or a 10 billionaire person or 20, I mean, what fucking point is that? And then you've got people on the streets that can't afford, then, who've got mental health issues who can't put a roof on their head. I mean, how do you square that peg? It's just, you can't. So
Mm.
well, I think we're led in that down that path of consumerism and education, jobs, buying a house, and all the time we're being taxed. We're being taxed on people. Well, I might buy a jacket, £200 jacket. Okay, if I sell it on eBay, they'll tax me on that. I mean, how many times they're going to fucking tax you? They'll
Mm.
tax you there, they tax you there, tax you fucking everywhere, and so that they can fucking carry on with their mismanagement of the country. I mean, we're on, as in the UK, for example, our GDP debt is bigger than is more than our turnover.
Mm.
And it's our profit. I think we're 100 billion in debt, and we're paying tax to people that can't fucking even get that right. We need to bring that down, but it doesn't. It just seems to be going higher and higher and higher. And so I'm. Is it toxic? Yeah, I think it is toxic. Um, but what is you can opt out of society if you want, can't you? That's one way of looking at it. Or you could do the minimum. Uh,
This idea of like being in hustle culture, though, it's not just being in society. It's this idea of like, hustling to break free. It's like it's sort of the Andrew Tate message, right? Like hard work is the answer to everything kind of thing. It's
mm,
like, you can go to the gym and then men will respect you and then women will want to fuck you and then, because you've got money, you can buy any material thing and essentially, people will treat you the way you want to because you're a high value, respected man, that kind of thing, right? Rather than just like being involved in the money system, like most people just have a 9 to 5 job, right? Which isn't quite hustle culture, but it in my mind, tell me if you guys agree or not. Like this question is a little bit like countering that idea of work till your eyes bleed, and that's the answer to,
mm,
that's the key to life. And as much as, we live in a nuanced world, as much as that might be the key for someone, someone that's maybe a bit down and out and they're lazy and they're overweight and, getting in the gym and working hard and having a purpose, building a business, that could be a great answer for them. But for a lot of people, it is toxic and it's playing the wrong game, essentially.
well, I think that the likes of Tate, I mean, his core audience are fellas that I've lost the will to or haven't had a direction, that I feel lost in life, where especially when they're scrolling through Instagram and you see all these people with lots of money and lots of girls and designer this and designer that, and then they feel as if they're a failure because they haven't you're not able to do that. And his core sort of audience is they pay a subscription to his method of getting out of that rat hole that they find themselves in, and that's preying off the weak. But if you prior to him, then you'd have these people who would become recluses. They were like, and then you'd get these Oklahoma bombers and things like that, and who are detest sort of the way the Western sort of lifestyle, and it is toxic. The problem is that I don't think Tate's the answer. Um, but then I think that the answer is the indoctrination that we're led to believe. I think that's where the failure is. But
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's not going to change anytime soon because there are too many people in a position that are profiting from it, and they're
So
just
what's the indoctrination, John?
well that you've got when you go to school, it's like you've got to make sure you pass your grades, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that, and when you pass your grades, then you go out and you get a job, and you get a house, and you pay the mortgage, and you buy. You're indoctrinated into the system, and it's like. They don't. And they say when you've got like lots of if you've got a Ferrari on your drive, then you're a success. It's like, well, will that make me happy? Well, look, wouldn't he be happy to have such a lovely car? Well, yeah, but the trouble is that you're not happy because a lot of people don't have the Ferrari on the drive and they're having to slave to pay their mortgage or their rent in a factory that they hate and they hate their job and they're going to do it for the next 40 years and then they're going to eat they've not sort of got the inclination to go home and cook a nice dinner. They'll go home and have fish and chips, or they'll go to the KFC because it's quick and easy, or chicken and chips for £2 or whatever it is, and then that's their daily life. And then before they can say Jack Robinson, they're no longer needed. Thanks very much for your services. Now, you can have a state pension, which is not going to cover anything, and you're gonna just disappear and you're going to die, and that is your life. And then you reflect on that, and that I'm not surprised people want to go out and fucking rob jewelry stores or get into crime. I mean, there was a guy, I saw a guy got nicked. He got 18 months and he had £20,000 in cash and I think about half a kilo of cocaine. And he was from Albania or something. 18 months. He'll be out in 9. He's got 20 grand on him. And you just think, well, crime pays. Crime is paying. I mean, that guy, and he's
It does for some. It does for some. I was doing a bit of work with a young man the other day, and three people that he hung out with through childhood had been arrested and put in. Well, they were in custody for murder because a young man lost his life for 20 quid being stabbed. Now, that's probably something to do with crime and exploitation and the whole kind of drugs. So for some people, it does not pay. For some, it does. And I think it's the same for consumerism and private equity companies, in that people at the top of the pyramid will profit. And you're right, John, in saying there's a lot of people who profit from it. But I disagree with you saying, therefore, it won't change, because actually, there's far more of us than there are of these people. Yes, they've got power and positions of power and authority. But this feeds in. So we've got young people losing their lives through trying to make a quick buck because the system doesn't has failed them, and you're right. It's easy to move a kilo of cocaine rather than go through an apprenticeship and work your ass off. We had the conversation before we pushed record about how difficult it is when people have worked all their life and done what they thought was right, and then get to the end of their life, typically after 60 plus, and have ill health, and then all their savings are taken through care, and then they end up in a care home. And my parents, after 7 decades of youth and community work, it was kind of, really, is this how we value their contribution after a lifetime? So it looks like we don't matter. And I remember when my daughter was born, yeah, it feels like we're kind of like collateral damage, and we're also something to exploit. When my daughter was born, only 2 hours on planet Earth,
Mm.
me, her mum, and her were sat on the hospital bed, and somebody came in and gave Tia a welcome bag to planet Earth,
Mm.
and it was full of adverts for what milk to drink. There was samples of those. There was an offer to have your first baby photo taken. There was samples of nappies, moisturizer, all sorts of things, because she was being welcomed as the consumer that she is. And yes, John, she is now, what, 18, and like many of us, love it when a parcel comes through the post from DPD, from something shiny that we've ordered on the online.
Yeah.
But what if we were taught that it's not about doing, doing your exams, being a worker bee, but we were taught that we should follow our passions and contribute, and we can get a buzz and some good feelings from helping other people out. What if that was the message
Yeah,
as we were
I think
born,
Yeah, totally.
educated?
that sounds like a great idea, but the problem is, Tim, is that yeah, our society, we need money for it to run. We need the dustbins to come out, and we need the police.
Some people love doing the dustbins.
Right. They still need it. I mean, they still need paying, right?
Yeah,
And
It seems like we need it.
and
at the moment, how it's set up, it
Hmm.
looks like we need it. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the fact is that to run the United Kingdom, um, there's a running cost, and in order to have a running cost, you need people to pay their taxes. Um, and in order for people to pay taxes, they need to have a job.
But
And
but that's because you've bought into the fact that
how are you going to change that? How are you going to change that? How are you going to how are you going to change the running costs of the United Kingdom?
okay, by not buying into the fact that it's a business to run in the first place.
Okay, so what happens to the National Health? You go in there and say, I've cut myself. I'm sorry, I haven't got a doctor. He's not here. Sorry.
No, we would have doctors. There's
Oh,
people who love
who's
being
going to pay
doctors.
for it?
Sorry,
But there would be no money to pay for him
why not?
because the people won't be interested in getting a job that's up with a salary. They'll be more interested in having a happy life.
Well, I would propose that a lot of people are starting to see that getting a job with a salary is a bit of a falsehood, and that they're more interested in having a happy life already. So
But,
why, so
and
why, to answer your question, why wouldn't we encourage that and see it not as UK limited, UK island limited, or but more of an island of 70 million people, to run things from the bottom and at the top, for the benefit of everybody.
because what will happen is that you get some ogre come along. I'll go, that's an easy win. I'll have a bit of that because he's a greedy bastard.
You mean like we have with million
Ukraine.
pound speculations being put on just 15 minutes before a war is announced?
Well, just like Putin did with Ukraine, he thought, I'll have a bit of that. Then I'm big, we're big and they've got China behind me. Happy days. I'll go in there, take what I want, and then we'll move on. But and the fact is that
How do they do that when
it's
when the
lying,
military, the
isn't it?
police,
What they
the
do.
people who are running the country agree that actually that's not what we're doing anymore. We're really serving people, and we're serving our collective societies. When we do that,
But then
that will no longer happen because there's only a few people taking the piss at the top.
Putin's not doing that, now is he? He's looked back and said, we were once really great and big. I want to go back there again. And then, unless if you agree with him, you've got a job. If you don't, then you're buried somewhere. And that's the way it is. So, and then the
And
thing,
you accept that, do you?
no, no, of course not.
Okay.
That's the way people are.
So you're saying you don't accept it, but that's the way people are.
That's why some people are like that, Tim.
Yeah, so you're accepting that that's the way that people are,
I'm,
not made or poisoned by our toxic culture.
no, I believe that some people are inherently greedy. Some people are indoctrinated so far in there that they can't see the wood for the trees. They
Yeah, and
don't
it's a
know. And
generational thing as well. You only have to look at certain families like, Trump's or Rockefellers or, whatever. Who's the other ones who have always put money into wars across the ages?
what I'm saying, Tim, is that people buy into that. And people have bought into it so far in that they can't see the.
Literally, literally. So therefore, it's our responsibility to
Who's,
take accountability and responsibility for
there are
for
people.
where we're at and
There are
making it better.
there are people that do that. They opt out of society. They become tramps, or they go and live on a commune somewhere.
That's not taking accountability and responsibility for us having poisoned our societies and trying to do anything about it.
Well, the problem is that you have is that even people with who've got been put in that position of power have tried to change it, and they know that they're up against a formidable force. It's the cabinet is looked upon in this country as Whitehall will say cabinet's only there for 4 years and it will change. We're here, we have had 30 years in my position. So what we'll do is that cabinet says we want to change this, and we'll go, yeah, okay, we'll put it out there and we'll think about it, and we'll come back to you and we'll show you, how things are going.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And what happens?
Because we
Whitehall
need
then
to
come.
change that. We
Well, no,
need to
no,
change
you
the
can't.
fact
How are
that
you going to
they're
do
it.
that?
Hang on a second. We need to change the fact that they're just there to serve corporations and pretend to be serving people when they're not. And we've got to change the fact that private equity firms and consumerism is actually detrimental and poisonous to us collectively. Once we've done that,
But you can't
all
change
good.
that. How are you going to change that? How are you?
See,
Going
this
into going
idea that
into
you
the
can't
temple and
change it.
flipping the tables. Sorry,
See,
Harry.
like, I'm convinced that we're controlled through our minds. And as much as I agree with you, John, like, this idea that, oh, we can't change it, like, for me, that's the whole game. Like, you've got enough people believing, oh, that's just the way it is. And that's the way it stays. Like, there is a world in which it can change. Like, the way I see it is if you can imagine it, it can happen, right? Because everything starts in the mind. And the fact that we can either be here discussing this idea of what a world could look like even though we're not outlining it very well because it's so alien to the world we live in, like it, for me, it definitely could happen. Like this monetary system was created because it's about exchanging value, right? It's like putting something simple, something tangible, rather than me saying I've got four chickens and you got a cow, let's swap. How many chickens is a cow worth? Like we put this value on this money and said, okay, this makes things a little bit more straightforward. But that can't be the only way of doing things, right? Like we can still exchange value in other ways, surely.
There's political systems that are a guy that have that sort of philosophy, and they've always failed.
But
There,
there's also been people-led trading systems like that have been quite successful at times.
are you going back to sort of like the Bronze Age?
No, I'm not. I used to be part of one in our county where you would go and say if you were a carpenter or gardener or whatever, or you had a skill or something to give away, you'd do that and you'd get credits, and then you could spend those credits. And I remember buying, you know, loads of burgers, homemade burgers off somebody from a farm for my 30th, which you attended actually, John. You were eating those burgers. Those were paid for by blood, sweat, and tears that I put into the system. It was a
That's,
local
I mean,
economy trading system.
I'm on the allotment as well, and I trade some of my fruit, and I don't trade it. It's like I gift it to other people. I don't, and then invariably they come back and go, "I've got one too many plants here. Do you want one?" And so,
Yeah.
you build a community. That sort of allotment community thrives. It does,
There you go. There you
and
go. There's an example of how to do it. You just formalize that as a local economy trading system in the way that we have got this massive economy system working globally at the moment, which looks like it's about to fail and collapse. And the only country that is doing quite well at the moment from going into this pre-global recession looks like America, which is very interesting,
But
isn't it?
the thing is that before the Romans invaded the United Kingdom, that's really how we used to sustain ourselves, in the UK. And then the Romans came along and said, well, I haven't got anything to give you, but what I can do is this bit of gold here is that it's valued at what you can buy a chicken with this little bit of silver or gold or whatever it is. So if you do that work for me, I'll give you this, and then you can go and spend that and buy yourself chicken. And he goes,
They
"Ooh, all right, then let's do that." And that's how that was, to be crude, that's how the monetary system started. Now, that was 2,000 years ago. Are you proposing to go back to where we were 2,000 years ago?
No, because we don't need to go back. We just need to
But we
get
can't go
real
back.
with what's actually happening.
Are you suggesting that we should change that then?
I'm suggesting that we should go uh, do it makes sense, like have local economy trading systems where you may formalize that on your allotment, or we may formalize it in a district or a county, or and everybody has, the ability to put into and take out of the accounts. You don't even
Yeah,
need
no, I
the
hear you.
gold anymore. You don't
No,
even need gold anymore.
I think I hear what you're saying, and it's a nice idea, but that's where it starts and stops. It ain't going to change. As much as we like to think we would like to do it and we could push it for it. There are there are too many people there with power.
I see. So what you're saying then is we shouldn't do anything about it. What we'll just wait until they impose that on us, that
Hmm.
we've got a digital cryptocurrency, and you have to do exactly what you're told rather than do
No,
things
I'm
the way
not
that
saying
we want.
that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in order to change it, I think you're pissing in the wind, right? I don't think you can. But there are, not everybody agrees with the system and they're seen as criminals. Now, if you're happy to carry that flag and be a criminal, then okay, so be
No,
it.
there's nothing criminal about it, mate. There's
And of
nothing
course not.
criminal.
I mean, the people that do that, Robin Hood wasn't. He was like, I'm fucking stealing off the rich to give to the poor. So,
What? Yeah, exactly. What's criminal is the multi-billions that are
but
being
you
made and
see,
creamed off at the top
criminal.
in our expense.
Well,
That's
what I'm
criminal.
saying, Robin Hood was happy to wear that, carry that flag, and I'm saying, if that's how if that's what you feel that you want to do with your life, then embrace it. And if they want to label it, they can label it all they like. But you just get on with doing what you want to do. But trying to convince the planet to change i- I think you're pissing in the wind. You're better off just getting on with your own life. Don't, even Mandela, of all the things that he did, what a great man he did, and he walked and he suffered hugely, as did Jesus Christ. In order to have a harmony on this planet, it's come to nothing.
No, it hasn't. It's
People,
everything
No.
changes.
people
Everything
bigger,
changes.
much bigger than you and I.
You cannot stop change. Change is the only constant thing, but the only difference is you can be complicit in it and drive it, or you have to accept it from the Lord and masters above. Personally, I'd quite not I'd no, hang on a second.
No, no,
Personally,
that's,
no, listen.
but you
Personally, hang on.
it's not
Personally,
just two. There's
hang
three.
on.
You can opt out.
Hang on. I just don't want us all collectively to sleepwalk into the change that is possibly going to be imposed on us when our current financial system collapses or isn't working anymore. That's what I'm saying.
Well, let me give you an example. Greece, for example, when they joined the monetary union in Europe, um, they were flooded with euros, and they were like, "Oh, happy days! Look at this! I can get buy myself a BMW. I can have this. I can have that. And iPhones." Prior to that, they didn't have it. Their monetary system. They tried to tax them, and the Greeks were like, "Well, no, you ain't. You know, I don't like this system you've got." So, rather than declare £100 that they've made in profit, they declared 10 and kept another 90 under the table. And then they bartered, like you said, with other people, say, "I'll do a bit of this for you, I'll do a bit of that for you," and they were happy. And the Greeks live like that, and they have lived like that for hundreds and thousands of years. It was when they tried to tax them, the Greeks said, "No, we're not doing it. We're happy doing what we're doing." And that but it's there are some people that are quite happy to do. But now you look at the Greeks now, their debt is huge.
So
It's,
you're admitting that one of the oldest civilizations on planet Earth, one of the oldest organized civilizations on
yeah,
planet Earth,
they don't pay their
can
taxes.
can make some changes.
No, no, they just carried on doing what they were doing. They weren't suckered into this lifestyle thing. They were quite
So,
happy.
so, John, do you think this way that we're running things is the only way that we can run things then?
No, no, of course not. I'm not saying it is the only way. I'm just saying is that, to have the view that we can change it is this, this view. This is quite grandiose, really. I don't believe that you
But
can.
it's only
But
people,
I think
right?
what I think that you can do if we all start to opt out, right? If everybody had Bitcoin and started using Bitcoin instead of the monetary system, then slowly but surely it would become a level playing field. Yeah. But people don't want to do that. They're too scared about what can happen, what if it goes wrong,
What
I'll,
if they switch it off?
let's stick with what I know. That's probably best. The government know best. And the majority of the people are like that. There are other people that don't believe that and they buy Bitcoin. Yeah. And there are other
Yeah.
people like Tim who live where he does and he says, "Well, okay, well, I'll do a bit of carpentry and you can give me a few spuds. And then, well, what express spuds I'll have in exchange for a few strawberries. Happy days, you know." I think you've got to start small. You've got to do a little, you've got to start with yourself. That's the first thing to do.
Just
Start.
for the record, I'm part of the same economy system that you are. I'm not living outside it.
Well, this is what I'm saying. This side hustle, is it toxic? Yes. What can we do about the thing is, that's the answer to the question. Is it toxic? Yes. The bigger question is, how are you going to change it? You know,
Or can, no, actually, it starts with the question, can you change it?
well, you how much of your life is part of the system? But then, don't answer that because you might incriminate yourself. So let's not.
No, no, I'll answer that by saying most of my life has been given to countering the hustle culture toxicity.
Hmm.
I think there is good, there can be good in it for the right person. Prescribing hustle, bro, as lack of a better word, to them, it could be the answer. If you're fat, overweight, living in your mom's basement, doing nothing with your life, and then you encourage that person to do something, build some purpose, go to the gym, get in shape, start speaking to women, etc. Like I can see why that would be beneficial.
That's
But
got.
for most people,
Yeah.
it's playing into the wrong game because you're just adding into this idea that that's what life is about, to accumulate things and wealth, which it's clearly not for me.
Yeah,
Um,
Well, it's
I agree.
not. And I agree with you. I think that, a lot of people out there are slaving away, and let slaving being the operative word, really, slaving away in order to put a roof over their head. It's hasn't changed for hundreds of years. It's awful. to
I
think,
hadn't quite finished my point though, right? The one side of it that I can understand is like a lot of young people, they're seeing that their life in front of them, this prescription that we've got, like you pointed out, John, the go to school, get a mortgage, get a job, etc. Like that isn't going to work for a lot of people. They're seeing they don't want that, right? So this hustle culture for me is it's not even just about accumulating things and being a high value man and being able to fuck bitches like this idea about it. I think for a lot of people it's about getting free from that and being able to, you know, not be a slave their entire life. It's about saving their time, their experience on earth to be theirs, not to be, dictated to by the financial system because I haven't got enough. If the bills are coming up this month, I have to go to my job, That's what it is for most people, I think, rather than just accumulating things or I want this watch in this mansion. Like I think a lot of people are turned off by that now.
Breaking free from the chains of slavery.
Yeah.
well, the thing is, you're just going from one slavery into another, aren't you, really?
Mm.
That's the problem. It's like um, the grass is greener on the other side. And as much as Tate likes to think, we'll sell him down the river of like, you can be big and strong, get down the gym, and and you can be attractive, you can attract females, and you can have your pick. And when you're successful, you can have more of a pick and things like that. So it's like for somebody that sits in their bedroom and I'm probably scared to talk to a woman, is that might tick a box for them. But there was a chap in America, a young boy, who was the son of the creative director of um, uh, the what was that movie that was shot in New Zealand? Um,
Lord of the Rings.
yeah, and his son had every yeah he went to
Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson. Was it Peter Jackson? No, he was a director. Not that he worked with it, the movie. And he was the young boy had, he had Prada glasses on. He had a BMW. He went to he went to a high, a school, paid school. It's all paid for, everything. He had everything that you could possibly wish for from a monetary point of view. And he was so upset that he wasn't able to attract a woman, and he was like, look at these. He's a loser. I've got my car's nicer than his. And why can't, what's the matter with these girls? Why can't they see that he's a loser and go with somebody like me? Turns out this guy lost the plot and, took a gun and drove into town, shot up a load of people, and he ended up dying himself. And that's, you know, that's the result. You don't have to be a loser, in the basement, aspiring to all these material things. It's you can have everything, and then still, what was and this young boy. I mean, what he was then. He wasn't attracting the girls. He wasn't happy. He was depressed. He had mental health issues, and
I
it's-
would suggest he didn't have everything though, John, because he didn't have that inner peace. He didn't have that security and confidence inside within.
So
but
what would you guys prescribe to that person then if it isn't hustle culture?
Well, the thing is, Tate Tate would probably say you need to get down the gym and make yourself big and strong and attractive from the outside. Because from a material point of view, he had everything. He had lots of money. He just needed to drop his hat, and he would have Prada sunglasses or a new BMW or a new car. He had everything.
I'm
So
not sure there's a prescription for somebody like that, but and getting down the gym and working on yourself physically
yeah,
is a good thing. And I think being with other men or being with other human beings and talking about those sort of things, that's all good. I
yeah.
think hanging out. I think maybe for somebody like that, maybe even some sort of like mind altering psychedelics in some shape or form might be quite useful in order to break out of the prison of what's expected of us through society and our education and given to us from our families in order to be less of a slave and more of a free thinking individual who can take accountability and responsibility for their own life. In terms of prescription, I think I'd be pointing them in that direction.
Mhm. Yeah, but but what comes to mind is that how is it that you and I, the three of us, we've not fallen into this scenario where this boy has gone out and killed. What makes us different to
Because we're different individuals who are having a different experience of life. Simple
what
as.
makes us different?
Our experience of life and what we think is going on and what shapes and forms us as people.
Yeah. So how is there things that we've done that that person didn't do that would benefit them, do you think?
Very doubtful. And I think all three of us have probably fallen prey to the systems that control us as well. So we're neither better or worse or in a position to kind of like say what might have happened on somebody else's life that we don't know anything about.
Yeah, I don't.
But I do think that the way that we talk and the way that we're brought up, educated, and our family cultures and national cultures and the rest of it, East, West, etc., does dictate what is expected of us. And we blindly accept those things to for some sort of peace, security, and to fit in. And actually, quite a lot of it is a falsehood, leading us down the wrong path and we're being, manipulated and controlled as a byproduct of the system, or we're feeding the system in some way and keeping it going. So that's why I differ with you, John, in saying there's not anything you can do about it, because I think if everybody was awake to that and taking more accountability and responsibility, then it would inevitably change for the better, especially if we take on role modeling in a way that is not, detrimental or toxic or poisonous in some way.
Mm.
Yeah. There are people. I think Blackpool. They're experimenting, aren't they, with a basic income because it's probably the most deprived area in Britain, in the UK, in England. Um, and so they're going to get given a salary, or they're going to get given an X amount of money, and they're just going to get on with life. And
Well,
I think that the problem that I think some people point out is that they haven't got a purpose in life. So it's all very well sitting in and all your bills being paid. So what happens then if they've not got a purpose in life? I mean, a lot of people identify themselves with how they occupy themselves during the day. I mean, for example, I might ask you, how would you describe yourself without describing your profession or where you live?
yeah, yeah.
So,
You
so
normally go down the road of occupation, don't you?
yeah, so I mean, that's a good question. How would you describe yourself, Tim, without describing your religion,
Yeah, sure.
your occupation or where you live. How would you describe yourself?
I'm quite happy to do that, but before we do, I would point out two things. One, that when they're trialing systems like you're talking about in Blackpool, it probably, inevitably, will um, involve some sort of digital sign up for people. And therefore, in time to come, when we've all accepted a system like that, it's possible that those people in control of those systems can just simply switch it off if you're not doing what they tell you to do. And secondly, I would point out that a lot of people, uh, lots of people are not happy with their occupation, i.e., they're only doing it for money. But a lot of people are following what they think is good for them and others, especially people who have retired, who then end up with nothing to do all day. And most of them kind of pursue some sort of occupation, whether that's going down to the allotment, whether that's looking after grandkids, whether that's volunteering. And a lot of our systems in community third sector charities in this country are reliant on that sort of thing. So people can find ways of contributing quite happily.
Yeah. So going back to my question then, so how would you describe yourself without telling your occupation or where you live, your religion, and what, you know?
How would I describe myself?
Yeah.
I'm spirit having a human experience.
Why would I expect something any fluffier than that? What about you, Henry?
Um, well, I don't know. I go to like characteristics when you ask that question. So I would say like I don't know, kind, friendly, open, honest, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about
Yeah,
you,
I can
John?
do that. I can do that too.
Yeah. It's an interesting one because what it's I'm an inquisitive thinker. Don't like to be told what to do. Um, yeah, all the usual. I like to think of myself as kind, um, but it's I, I like to get high, and that might mean going for a run or doing some exercise or dropping an ecstasy or whatever. I do like exploring out of mind experiences. I like, yeah, it's I like the wow factor. You know, that's why I traveled so much when I was younger. It's like, wow, this is different. This is interesting.
So are
So,
you chasing something, John?
pardon?
Are you chasing something?
Yeah, when I left the UK in '88, I was being pigeonholed. I was not enjoying it. And that was because of the decisions that were taken for me and subsequently what I had to do thereafter. Um, and I wanted to start a clean slate. I wanted to do something.
What what were you pigeonholed at, and what was you being forced to do rather than wanting to do?
Well, I was working as I'd grown up um, working in nightclubs and bars, shaking cocktails. And then I worked as a bouncer. Um, and then this is sort of mid 80s. So my peers were part of a gang who liked to fight. And along with that, other bad stuff was there as well. Well, bad stuff, other illegal things were going on. Then, so they were my peers, they were my friends, my gang, the gang of people who used to hang out with. And then being a bouncer, working in nightclubs, you meet with some really, I mean, today everybody's regulated. They've all got, you've got to apply to the council to be a doorman. It wasn't like that when I was young. It was like you were part of people who used to look after the nightclub were villains. They were so, and then you saw I was getting a lift home in the back of their van amongst guns, shotguns and things like that. It's like, wow. And then bouncers were getting opened up with knives and football hooliganism. And then I was thinking, God, where am I going here? This is, I'm gonna get myself into a lot of trouble. Um, my hustle at the time was not good. It was illegal. But it used to make me money, and I could afford to go up to Copperfields where Tim was working and buy some nice silk underwear and stuff like that. Yeah, sure. But where I was going, what? So my question then it was like I sort of envisaged where I was going, and it didn't look good at all. So I was like, right, I'm going to Australia. I'm going to make a new life. I'm going to reinvent myself. Um, and that's what I did, really. So I think I was guilty of the hustle. And if you can't do it legally, people always look for another way to do it, you know? Why, I used to go up the town on a Friday or Saturday night and people were wearing lovely clothes and they had XR3Is out there and they had, this, that, and the other, and they had money, loads of money. And you were thinking, well, I want part of that because all my friends are doing that as well. And, I don't want to be the, the prick that's got no money, sits at home by himself. I want the money. I want to go out and buy everybody drinks and have a loads of money. Um, but the trouble is that if you can't do that legitimately, you end up doing it illegitimately, and that's where it all goes a little bit wrong. Then, thankfully, I came out the other side, um, but I can see the attraction why kids do it. I can see the attraction why everybody does it, because if you're a business owner and you're just making ends meet and you can't afford to buy your kids shoes to go to school, then are you going to cook the books a little bit so that they can do that? Of course you will, because you want to provide. You don't want your kids being mocked and saying, look at him, his dad's a pauper, he ain't got any money. You don't want that. You don't want that for your kids. So you'll go out
Yeah,
to make sure that they've got a nice pair of shoes on and they're not bullied at school. So it doesn't matter,
yeah.
where you are in society. I was listening to another person recently, um, Tara Palmer. What's it? Do you remember her?
Hopkinson.
Yeah, poor girl, 45, died, and she had a bad cocaine habit. But anyway, I feel as if I'm rabbiting a bit much here, so I give.
There's a strange contradiction where it's like if you're a plumber and you go and work 7 days a week, 12-hour days, you're considered like, it's respectable, you're caring for your family, you're a man, you're a provider, you're working hard, etc. But then if you're, a young man and you're trading crypto, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're a degenerate hustle bro. You know what I mean? And it's like you're just chasing the wind, for example. You're not, but then if you're a plumber, you're respectable, you're caring for your family. So what like I find it funny. Maybe it's just perception, but what's the actual difference there? You know what I mean? One is hustle
No, there
culture,
isn't
one's
any
not.
different. There isn't any
Mm.
difference. If crypto is not illegal, but if you were selling crack cocaine, it might be a little bit different.
Well, so
Mhm.
here's the thing, isn't it? For young people these days, let's say, for argument's sake, an 18, well, actually younger than that, um,
12,
14,
13.
let's say 14, 15, whatever. Yeah, a teenager, you're either pushed into some form of apprenticeship or, do this and then you can work for the next, 4 or 5 decades of your life and then you can retire and pay off your mortgage. Or you may think, well, actually, I can't do that because I've struggled with school and I'm labeled with as a troublemaker. But these guys down the road, probably the drivers of your van back in the 80s, with the guns and the local criminal organization, offer you some running opportunities, which makes really fast cash, and you can speed around on motorbikes and get away from the police. You're provided with weaponry and excitement. You can wear a hood, listen to grind music, and provide for your mum who's working, 2 or 3 jobs to try and put food on the table. Uh,
Yeah.
but those two people are looked at in very different ways, but they're
Mm.
only trying to survive in the way that makes sense to them. And it's as a result of a broken system that we're enforcing collectively. So
Yeah.
actually, the answer to your question, like how you change that, John, is kind of like, well, you changed your individual life by saying this is dodgy, this is unacceptable, I'm going to go in a different direction. We can do that on an individual and a collective level by going, actually, the systems we've got in place don't work right now. They're not serving anybody apart from some very rich people at the top making a huge amount of money at the detriment of us worker bees. So
Yeah.
what are we going to do about it?
Well, I hear what you're saying, Tim, and it's a noble idea. It really is, and I think that if there was a way to do it, I'd be right on. I'd be there. Oh,
I know you would be, my friend, but there's embedded in your attitude towards that
mm,
uh, that attitude is kind of like the acceptance that what I'm talking about is idealistic, where it's not.
I'm not
Mm.
accepting it. I
Okay,
don't accept it.
okay.
But I think that when
But
you
you accept it
when
could
you
be
no, 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 let me finish.
idealistic.
When
So
you don't accept it, you want something to change, you start with yourself first.
yeah, you can.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear that.
And that's where you start. And
yeah.
But you have said multiple
you
times,
know,
John, that you don't think that, that it can change. But
well, like
like, it's only people, right?
my daughter said to me
Damn straight.
when she was 12, "Can I have pocket money?" I said, "Yeah, you can have pocket money." I said, "But you can I have to show you a way you can have more money." And she goes, "What was that then?" I say, "You start a little business. You go around all the allotments here and you say you do some weeding for them, right? And once you've got five of them, you get somebody from school, they'll come along and you give them a 50% of your earnings. And then you sit there and you do nothing and you have your mates walk around and you start and that's how you make your money, right? That's how you do it." And she was like, "Oh, okay then." And then look at her now. I mean, she's working for somebody. She's slaving. She's done. I've tried to show her the way not to be part of the system. Yeah, to step outside and do it a little bit different.
No, no, I don't accept that, John. What you were telling her to do was actually be part of the system, but
Or
at a
create your
higher
own.
level of the ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what it was do what I was trying to do is to give her an education is how it works, right? And by putting your hand out saying, "Can I have some?" You get short-term wealth, but it's not going to give you any long-term wealth,
But
right?
that's what I'm saying is that kind of like system that we accept and buy into is
Mm.
based on meritocracy, the idea that you have to have some worth or something to contribute in order to kind of like climb up the ladder. Whereas I think that's the problem with the whole system.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But when you're talking to a 12-year-old who wants, "Can I have pocket money?" No, I didn't really see much of an option there. I was saying the idea of like having a community and sharing and not being part of the system is a bit of a hard pull, that one, really.
I accept that, and I'm not digging your parenting. We've all done the same, but that indicates that we're part of the system as well because we propagate those sort of like lies. Like when I wanted my daughter to go to university, and I was so chuffed that she did. And then when she said that it wasn't for her, I was kind of like there was part of me that was so programmed that went, what do you mean? What are you going to do with your life if you don't do that? But actually, what she was saying to me was, Father, I don't think it's worth 3 years of my life and 30 to 60 grand's worth of debt in order to enjoy my life. I could just get on with my life right now and I don't have to go through all that. And I was kind of like, hallelujah, well done.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's right. But and so I think yes, it is toxic. Is there a way to do it? And me personally, I think you've got to start with yourself and you know, try and change that before you can. And then if you can change yourself, then change the people around you, your children and your family, and get them to buy into your philosophy. And then if you can, then it can sort of snowball into something that can be, a regional thing, maybe a country thing. But to start with the country, I think that you're setting yourself up to fail. I think the first place is at home. Do it with yourself first and try. And it's hard. I've been trying all my fucking life to do it. You can't say I'm a hard worker. I am not. But I try hard not to work. So I am quite a hard worker. But what I would say though is that y- what's the definition of a hard worker? Somebody that goes out and at 8 o'clock comes home at 6 o'clock, or somebody that tries hard to make ends meet without having to work too hard.
Yeah, that's where I see it as toxic. I've coached people in executive positions in like big motor car industry kind of organizations, etc. in Europe, and they would say that in the headquarters, they would put their jacket. They'd have one jacket that they have in the car to come in and out of work with, and another jacket to leave on the back of their chair, so it looked like they were still there because it was expected that you would work hard and late. And it doesn't matter how long you're there, like it's well done. You're here until after the boss, so that's good. You might get a promotion. Bullshit.
Yeah, I know. I know. I work for Daewoo, Korean organization, and they're renowned to be working like the Japanese all day, every day. And he had a bed under his desk.
Wow.
And I was like, what the? I was like, what are you doing with a bed under there for? Oh, the girl that I was with, she goes, oh, he has to stay up until, because Korean time and stuff like that. He needs to he'll probably, and I'm like, you're joking me, really? And it's like, yeah. And
On one level, you've got to admire that because it's like you're living with at least you've got a purpose and you're not sort of, etc. And in Japan, it's part of like responsibility and ownership to, like train drivers being publicly kind of shamed because the train is 8 seconds late in Tokyo. Try that in this country. Bloody hell. I mean,
no.
you're lucky if the train turns up.
Talking of
Yeah.
talking of the Japanese, is that but there is a system out there, and you can opt out. The vanishing people that it's called, and you make a telephone call, and then in the middle of the night they'll come and take you away. They blindfold you, and you can restart your life. And it's against the law for anybody. Uh, they can disappear, they can vanish, and the vanishing people in Japan. You look it up. So the government can't follow you. Your,
That is so
your
interesting.
parents or your children or your wife, they can't follow you. You just start a new life, cut it. It's a brand new life straight away.
So, I mean, we need to start winding this up a little bit, maybe. But so what you're saying is that their working life balance or something, their grind is so toxic that you have to get yourself taken hostage
Yeah,
in order to take your own life back.
yeah, it's that.
If
That's
ever you lot can't get hold of me for a long time, just know I've done that, all right?
yeah. It's hard. It's so, but it's true. I mean,
Oh my God, that is the saddest thing I've heard all week, and I've heard some sad stuff.
have you? Let me. I'll Google it for you for a
I
second.
think that's pretty cool.
That is hilarious, but hilariously sad.
That's like
Henry,
Breaking Bad when he gets a new identity.
Yeah, you do get everything. You get a new identity a lot.
well, look at that, Breaking Bad, making money on the side from, yeah, anyway. Henry, what do you think? Toxic culture,
I
toxic.
don't know. It's a really interesting one for me because as much as we've all pointed out, it can be toxic and it's playing the wrong game to some degree. It doesn't seem very toxic when you've got a single mom working three jobs, and then the son comes home one day and says, "Mom, I've just paid off your mortgage. I've just built a business and made 100 grand or whatever, and you can quit two of those jobs," kind of thing. It doesn't seem very toxic in those kind of moments. So it's like I said, prescribed to the right person, it makes sense. But then also there is the added factor of you're just playing the wrong game altogether in pursuing money. But as much as I say that, I'm a hypocrite because, when I finish this call, I'm going to go away and I'm going to work and,
Mm.
play into this idea, as I'm sure you guys will tomorrow or the next day or whatever. So, as much as we can recognize the flaws in it, John's pointed out that it's hard to make change when the system is so embedded into our lives and everything we do. So it's a tough one. It really is.
Yeah.
The expression is called Jahatsu, Johatsu. And Jahatsu refers to people in Japan who purposely vanish from their established lives without trace. The phenomenon can be seen all over the world, such as United States, China, Korea, United Kingdom. It has been theorized that the Japanese harsh work culture, in combination with a lack of familial and community support, has contributed to the prevalence of Yoatsu in Japan. And another interesting thing about Japan is that the prisons are getting overloaded, and they're getting overloaded with the pensioners because they can't afford to put a roof um, over there. They can't pay they can't pay their rents or their mortgages, and they're isolated, and there is no community spirit, and they would prefer a prison life than a free life because there's community, there's food, and there's shelter. And that's shit, isn't it, really? That's where a lot of the pensioners are going in Japan, is that they're not choosing to retire peacefully and do their traveling around or enjoy they're choosing to go to prison because they get more of a life there than they do anywhere else. So I mean
Uh,
it's
Yeah,
that's sad too. And
yeah.
also because it's sorry, go on, Henry.
No. Go on, man. You're first.
It's particularly sad because that's quite a collectivist society. Because I would say or suggest that hustle culture is a little bit toxic because it's mainly the individual fighting for themselves, climbing that imaginary ladder, and that's feeding into and reinforcing a system that we all keep in place and don't challenge, that it's not serving the majority and only the few. But to see that collapsing a little bit or not going very right in a collectivist society is particularly sad. I agree that you must start with yourself and as an individual, and it may be that it's right for you to get your head down and work as hard as you can to provide for yourself or your family or whatever. If you have kids, you've got to bloody pay for them. Don't expect the bloody state to do that for you. Make some provisions for old age. I'm guilty in perhaps not making as much provision for that as I could. But I also think that collectively we should challenge this idea that seems to be quite poisonous and seems to be leading to people taking themselves hostage, putting themselves in prison, or living as a slave, as a living slave in a system that isn't quite right for us all. So I would say it is toxic, and it's reinforced by the things that we believe, the things that we accept, and the things that we teach each other, from father to son, mother to daughter, on and on, generation to generation. Time to change, Henry.
It's funny. It seems to me there's this theme of like wanting to get away from work, and I'm not shitting on that because I get it. But it's funny because like in the Bible, the most respectable kind of jobs are things like carpenters, things like plumbers, things where you're making real change in the world, things that are needed. And it's like we could go down the route of, okay, well, one day AI will like save us or something, like, oh, we'll all be able to sit on our ass and sit on the beach and just fucking suck the straw while the AI does everything for us. But it's like, is that the answer? And I always get back to the point of like we're here to work. We've been given dominion over the earth, and we are here to do things, and it's it doesn't feel right to think, oh, what, like this idea that AI might save us or something. You know what I mean? Like, oh, the robots will do all the work, and then we could just sit back and do what we're really meant to do. Fuck all. You know what I mean? That just feels so wrong to me. And
well,
yeah, have you guys been following the armtists
Oh my God,
too?
I've got a low battery. I've got to find my connector. Keep talking.
Okay, go on, John.
yeah, the thing is, it's interesting. Unless you've actually opted out of the system, um, I think it's difficult to have well, your perspective, I think, is a little bit skewed. I've done it. I mean, for example, when I left Australia, I took a year out, 1 year, to travel through Central and South America. Didn't work at all. And I just
Mm.
spend, spend, spend. And the thing is, when I was within the first 2 or 3 weeks, it was like holiday. I was eating in restaurants, going living by the beach, going for a swim, do whatever you would do on holiday. It was in Mexico. It
Mm.
took me forward, and then as I was coming out of Mexico into Guatemala, you start to realize, okay, starts becoming a way of life. You've still got your washing to do. You've still got to Think about where you're going to have dinner, what you're going to have for dinner. Although it's comida corriente, it's just a meal of the day at the local cafe or something like that. What we're going to do, so then you've got to occupy your time. Now, you can occupy time by sitting and smoking a reefer on the beach, listening to Bob Marley, which I did a few times. And there are other times I'm thinking, okay, well, this is a bit of a waste. So let's go and do exploring. Let's go and see some of the cultural things, the
Mhm.
ruins and stuff like that. And then, after 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, it becomes a way of life. And it's your the grind in life changes. It's never any better. It does the short period in which you were in with holiday in the first 6 weeks or so, it's ephemeral. Then it changes, and then you're back into a system again. And it's not a very productive system for me because it was all about spending money. So I was slowly and slowly becoming poorer and poorer. Um, from from a monetary point, not from a cultural point. But it's so when you come out the other side, you start to think, well, okay, what is the meaning? What am I going to do in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s? And am I going to work every day, 40 hours a week? And then if I am, what am I going to do when I become thrown on the scrap heap? Or what am I going to do? We're going to spend all that money that I've saved up for my retirement and go on holiday. Well, big surprise here, you're probably going to be so knackered, you're not going to be able to do it. You know, you'll probably
Mm.
at 60, you'll probably have you'll have an issue, a health issue, and if you're lucky, you'll get to 70 or 80, and then it'll be all over. But you won't have the the you you won't aspire to do all those lovely things that you thought you would do when you were in your 30s, when you retire to go and see the world, because your body's not up for it, you know. And to sleep on a hammock boat, you'd be like, oh my God, no, where's the nearest five-star hotel? Yeah, I've got to go and find there's got to be something better than this. Because my back's killing me. It's like that. So it's a difficult one. But to sort of, I mean, I surmise how I might explain to my children what to do with their lives. And there's no right way or there's no wrong way. Um, I think that what you've got to do is you just got to, rather than complain about it, is just to try and do something about it, really.
See, it
Like
leads me with a question like, what part are we supposed to play, right? Because it's an interesting point that you bring up, John. And it's like, for me, I was always a carpenter, right? Like, my whole working life. The day I left school, 3 days later, I was working. I didn't have a summer holiday. I wanted to work, I wanted to earn money. But then coming away from that, coming away from a 9 to 5, a respectable job, and now making content on the internet and selling people for £1 commissions like that. I've been living a much more cushy lifestyle, right? Doing more things when I want to. I haven't got to ask for a day off if I want one. If I want to see my friends, etc., I can just do it. And you do start to wonder, like, firstly, you acknowledge that there are other ways to live. Like you said, you can just go to the beach and smoke a reefer on a Tuesday afternoon if you want to. But like, you do start to wonder, what am I adding to the world? And what, like, am I any different to these billionaires that don't give back? And if my value before was, even if it was only 2 grand a month, at least I'm you know helping these properties come back to life, and I'm doing something. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, you could say, all right, well, I'm a good person and I smile to people when I walk to the shop. Like, what are we really supposed to be giving? Is it this monetary value? Am I supposed to be adding into this big cup? Like, or is all of this
Well,
just bollocks? Like,
I know. And as I was saying to you, it was all about spending money.
mm.
I wasn't actually earning any, but perhaps I was contributing to their economy, So it was a good.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
So, you could look at it like that.
yeah,
Some
yeah, yeah.
others might say, well, you lazy bastard, you've done nothing. All you've been doing is smoking reefer for the last 12 months.
Yeah, and as I remember it though, John, you worked a long time and you scrimped and scraped and saved in order to go and do that for so long.
I
And
did
if
in
I
this
remember,
country. I did-
yes, exactly, exactly. So you contributed to the economy in order to make that happen to yours for yourself. So you deserved that time to experience. And as I remember as well. There may still be some cash at the bottom of a palm tree somewhere in the Caribbean.
yeah,
But that's another story.
go there. Go there. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow, I think you've been given a life to contribute in some way. Some people, and maybe from a nihilistic point of view, if there is no kind of meaning or purpose, it is subjective and objective, isn't it?
But
Life.
being a
And
being a spender is a contribution because you're feeding the economy.
yes, yes, absolutely. What I was just about to say, though, is that we've been given a life, and it's down to us individually to choose what to do that with that, whether we feed into the system, whether we contribute to that system, whether we pay into it or take out. But there are other ways of contributing, such as there are so many things that need to happen right on your doorstep, in your own community, for your friends, for your family. And you can choose to spend your time doing some of those things as well, even if it's
Mm.
just being
Sure.
somebody to get somebody out of being isolated and lonely, or doing the shopping for some elderly person, or whatever it is, driving a minibus for people going to the day centre, or getting your the pincers and cleaning up your area.
Even
There are
going down
so
to
many things, so
even
many things.
going down to the local shop and spending your good money there is enough because
Um,
you're
well, yeah, it's enough if you don't want the system to change,
well,
perhaps, is
no,
my
because it's a local person, isn't it? They're selling, it's a local person running their own business.
Yeah, you're supporting, if I go down to the local pub or the local shop, I'm supporting their families. Yeah, for sure, by spending my money. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Um,
but it is part of the system. But I think, I think what you're saying, but I think that there may be some merit in saying, okay, let's not contribute towards the conglomerates, the likes of Asda's and Tesco's, and be more supportive of your local network and going to the corner shop and spending money there. That could be a night. That would that would be a great start for everyone.
I think you're right. I think we need to stay lit and awake to, what are we feeding into? What are we contributing to? And what comes out of our mouths, how is that feeding into everybody's kind of ideas and beliefs about what is possible and what's not possible?
Yeah.
So for me, like what you both are pointing out is that our time is valuable, and I think you can prove that in the sense that someone will pay you for it. Like you can literally receive tangible assets for your time, right? So to me, that proves that our time is valuable. And that being said, then surely you have some sort of responsibility to spend that time well, because otherwise you're almost saying, well, this life and this experience, this
Well,
time on earth I've been given is
but
so insignificant that I can just spend it how I want, right?
yeah, but the thing is, I think Henry, what you need to sort, I think a part of me says, well, you need to chill there, really, because don't go. You haven't got a responsibility you've only got a responsibility to yourself. You,
Only if you think you are, not part of a collective consciousness
well,
that
first
is
off,
like living together.
just a minute. I would say, because Henry, you haven't got any responsibilities, right? You haven't got any children. So
That's not correct. He's got siblings, he's got parents, he's got
not
grandparents,
his
he's got
responsibility.
friends, he's got, people who watch him on internet. He's got lots of responsibilities. He's got a responsibility to himself.
That's the first thing he's got is responsibility to himself. That's what I'm saying. That's the first thing he needs to recognize.
And I think that that's where it becomes poisonous and toxic, because, like, if you start from that point of view rather than being you are just one piece of a bigger picture, that's where it starts becoming falling down and becoming poisonous and toxic.
So if he accepts that he's got a responsibility to himself, then he needs to sort of take a step back and make decisions based, first of all, upon himself, rather than feel obliged to do um, anything else.
He's not obliged to do anything other than what he knows is right within him.
But that's what he was saying. He was saying that you've got well, once you've this was my point, is that I don't think you've got an obligation just because you've got you're taking money, you're taking money and you're exchanging it for your time, that you've got a responsibility to do anything else other than.
That's correct. I know that every single penny spent on me is worthy of acceptance. That I will accept any penny, any pennies or pounds or thousands spent on me, as I'll accept that as I am worthy of that. Henry,
Well,
do the right thing, brother.
let me wait. The thing is, also, I mean, there are times when I sit here and I mean, this is there's a fallow period for me before, and I sometimes wake up and think, God, I should be really earning loads of money, or at least earning money, loads of money for somebody else. And then a part of me was like, wait a minute, hey, just a minute, just slow the hell down. It is what it is. You've put enough you put the effort in that would do normally. If the stars are not meeting, then you should relish that time,
Ebb and flow.
and make the most of it and go and get some sunshine and smile and be nice to somebody. Perhaps if you see an old lady who can't carry out bags properly, pick it up and take it to the car for her. It'd be nice. That's a nice way to spend your day. So don't get all beaten up about the fact that, you know, you're not doing anything with yourself.
Mm.
You,
Yeah,
you can find good. You can find it. Um, a pastime other than making money for yourself or other people to occupy your time. I think that's, even if you sit there and watch the weeds grow, that's peace, bringing a nice zen calm to yourself.
yeah.
So it's hard, it is difficult. And
No,
when you're bombarded by, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to make money, but if you're not doing anything, you're wasting your time. I mean, I've heard that all through my life, and
yeah.
you can beat yourself up about that.
It becomes toxic, doesn't it?
Yeah, you've really, if your life is not that way inclined, you listen to a lot of wealthy people. The first thing that they say is, I was lucky. Ricky Gervais, he says, I'm not the best comedian, but I was lucky. The stars aligned for me, and now I don't really have to worry about that. And the interviewer said, "Are you proud?" No, no, I'm not proud. That's just the way it is. And I think you've got to stop, reading too much into things, and start if it's not lined up for you, just let it be and get on with it, and don't beat yourself up about it. And
Yeah,
it is, it's difficult for some, and I think it's difficult for a lot of people, to be honest,
I think
because
you're right.
we're bombarded left, right, and center, from school to home to social media, that what you should have an aspiration, you should do this, and if you're not ticking all the boxes, then you're a washed out failure. Well, that's a load of fucking bollocks, in my opinion.
Last words, Henry.
Mm. Well, thanks for that, John, by the way. Um, Last words. I think what John said actually really summed it up really nicely, because it's nothing like what I would have said as my closing statement. But do you know what? I think what John said was a whole lot better than anything I would have come up with. So I'll reiterate that, to be honest. I think that was a beautiful way to end.
Yeah, me too. Nice
Right.
one, John. Nice one, everybody. It's one of those rarities where we end in agreement for this particular podcast. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you haven't done, like or
And
subscribe,
I will be choosing the question for the next time.
Oh, nice. Look forward to that.
But
And we look forward to reading any comments that you might want to make on this as well. See you next time. Ta-da.
see
Bye.
ya.